Efficiency Unlocked is hosted by two tech-savvy physicians and dear friends of mine, Doctors Carewe and Dr, who are experts in using technology to automate routine tasks and increase efficiency in everyday and business life. Let's see what they have for us today.
Stay tuned for this series of episodes where we'll be discussing the game-changing impact of AI in the realm of patient care and physician well-being.
Get ready to unlock efficiency with NerdMDs.
Efficiency Unlocked.
My dad retired as a cardiologist because he just couldn't type fast enough anymore. And there's just so much clerical work that we have to do that it's just like it's the system. It's not any specific technology's fault necessarily. It's really like the system and all the incentives. And it's just there's always more and more and more that's put on the clinician's plate. And at this point in time, it feels like so many of us out there are drowning in it.
That was our guest on the show today, Shiv Rao. He's co-founder and CEO of Abridge, a healthcare conversation company that uses generative AI to bring context and understanding to every medical conversation. Through his own family's experience with a rare disease and also treating patients as a practicing cardiologist, Dr. Rao saw opportunities to improve the gap between healthcare conversations and what happened next. With Abridge, doctors and patients alike can get more value from their medical conversations. Abridge enables providers to save time on documentation while also empowering patients to stay on top of their health. In addition to Abridge, he is a practicing cardiologist and previously led the provider-facing investment portfolio for UPMC. He completed his medical education and training at the University of Michigan and University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine and studied at Carnegie Mellon, where he programmed virtual synthesizers, sold records in Japan, and skateboarded in IMAX movies. We hope you enjoy this conversation between me and Shiv today, where we talk about the product, but also about him and how the impact of these products are going to change medicine for the better. Enjoy the show.
Shiv to the show.
Thanks so much, Adam. It's such a privilege to be here. I'm excited for this.
Awesome. Well, this ambient AI and generative AI series, we have a set of kind of topics that we're trying to run through with these CEOs, founders, CMOs, and it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm really looking forward to hearing more of your story and the company's story.
Awesome.
So let's jump in. We'd like to start with kind of the origin story. And you can take this in kind of one of two ways. We want to know a little bit about you, but you can also delve into the origin, obviously of Abridge. But can you share with us your journey and the inspiration behind creating an AI healthcare product or solution? What was your why? And how has it really shaped kind of the vision of the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you a little bit about myself and my journey. So we started this company in 2018, but just prior to this, I was as you said, a corporate VC essentially for UPMC. Got to invest a lot into startups, but also into Carnegie Mellon University. We started a machine learning and health program there, and I got to really get to know professors and postdocs and PhDs. And it's relevant now to Abridge because we have this incredible free-flowing pipeline of world-class talent that comes out of Carnegie Mellon into our company on the AI side. A lifetime ago, I went to Carnegie Mellon, but in the middle became a cardiologist. And I say that with an asterisk, though, because I see patients once a month now anymore. Like I'll take the shift that nobody else wants on a weekend. And it's a privilege. I get to stay close to the mission of the company, which is to improve the care delivery experience for the people who matter most, patients and the care team around them. But also selfishly, I get to use Abridge and bring those insights back. Now, I think like my why, I think it all started, there's probably three aspects to it. There's a sort of professional aspect to this, just thinking about our jobs as doctors and like what our day-to-days look like. My dad retired as a cardiologist because he just couldn't type fast enough anymore. And there's just so much clerical work that we have to do that it's just like it's the system. It's not any specific technology's fault necessarily. It's really like the system and all the incentives. And it's just there's always more and more and more that's put on the clinician's plate. And at this point in time, it feels like so many of us out there are drowning in it. But for me, I mean, I was always the worst at documentation when I had a regular clinic and I was seeing patients every Monday. I was the one that the administrators would chart chase every couple of weeks and just say, Shiv, you're not getting your documentation done on time. You're not getting your coding done on time. And it's a big problem because if you don't get it done, obviously within a few days, it's lost revenue. And if you're doing the kind of job I used to do with all those drop-down menus, picking the lowest hanging fruit diagnosis like chest pain NOS, not otherwise specified, or shortness of breath NOS, it's bad news for everything that's downstream of the actual encounter. So that, I think that pain point, I think it's visceral. Like I just know it. I feel it in my bones. And so being able to like solve for it and start to unburden people from a lot of that clerical work is obviously, it's like so inspiring and exciting. And like even beyond that, though, I think that there's personal aspects to this, and there's also like a sort of a thesis to this. Like I think the thesis of our company that really underpins everything that we do at Abridge is really simple, but it has like profound product implications. And it's that healthcare is about people. It's not about technology. It's about people. And on one side of the room, there's professionals, whether it's a doctor or a nurse. And on the other side of the room, there's a patient and a family member. And what are they doing? Like they're having conversations. Conversations drive everything in healthcare. Like dialogues drive everything. They're upstream of diagnostics and therapeutics and coding and risk adjustment and clinical trials and experiences and ultimately even outcomes. And so finding a way to build technology that can structure and summarize those conversations means certainly we can solve for the problem that is right here, right now, that I also feel viscerally in my bones, which is clinician burnout. How can we unburden people to be more present with their patients? But also the ability to sort of expand into all of those other ideas and sort of think more expansively about what the experience can be in the future with this type of technology. That's what I think was also part of the equation here and part of the why. Once you sort of see the opportunity, it's hard to unsee it. So hopefully that gives you a sense.
It totally does. And, I think what you just eloquently summarized, I think is what anyone in healthcare has felt, over particularly the last, I'd say 10 plus years. That's really when the EHRs really started to take foot particularly in the United States, but definitely abroad as well. And I think it was just, I reflect back on when I was in residency, we were on paper and then we transitioned to an EMR. And I just remember, for me, as a young resident, I didn't think it was that struggling, in the sense of we were used to kind of change and technology. And then in med school, we were working on 7 different EMR systems, across the regions that I was in. But to see the angst and like the distraught, even back then, which again, that was more than 12 years ago for me, to see the attending physicians like just really struggle was really what got me into wanting to help, in optimization of systems and people. And it, I think just what you just described, it's like, I don't know, it's almost like the culmination of all this stress and something we've been looking for, that would happen in the future, where like the technology would finally get to a place where it truly is helping, like the way you just described, listening to conversations, reading emails that are sent by a patient, phone calls, listening in on those things, and just augmenting that administrative kind of burden that comes, across the board.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it's also just interesting to think about what's upstream of all of these workflows as well. And some of these workflows obviously are like from a cognitive perspective represent so much burden. And upstream of it are things that I think we as clinicians on the ground don't feel much agency over. Like they're like federal mandates and like they're JCO requirements. There's like E&M coding requirements. Like these aren't things that we can necessarily wake up one day and say that we're going to impact. And so I think so many of our systems like reasonably have to represent the reality that we all live in. And I think that in 2023, we live in a reality where we're faced with a public health emergency with clinician burnout and staffing shortages. the AMA had that survey last year. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It was like 2 out of 5 doctors, want to leave the profession in the next couple of years. And then there was something I just saw the other day about one out of 4 medical students want to finish med school, but then not practice. Like, what are we doing? And there's just like, we have to deal with this. And I think what's exciting about this moment in 2023 is it's players like Abridge, it's players like all the companies that you're interviewing, but it's also the large players who are probably making like just incredible impact already in the way that they're embracing this kind of technology and integrating it. And obviously I'm thinking about all the amazing work that Epic is doing. They just had a YouTube video the other day about their generative AI portfolio. I mean, it's just like, it's amazing, right? It just feels like such an incredible moment in time for the industry as a whole, where while none of us, like none of the players I mentioned, have agency over those mandates and all the misaligned incentives in healthcare, we do have agency over the technologies, over the solutions, over the experiences that we deliver inside of the work that we put forth. And so that we're optimizing so hard now with this technology for the user experience is really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And you've already led into kind of, I think, the next kind of series of conversation, which is, around the impact, of this technology and specifically what Abridge has already developed or is planning to develop. But can you share a story around this where, either someone that's utilized this product and, you felt so energized and, thankful for, changing that course of that person or, inspiring them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been such a privilege, and it's like a nonstop dopamine hit to be in this space right now. Just because on a daily basis, you're hearing from hundreds of users that this is changing things for them. I'd say at a meta level, the best feedback that we've received, bulletin board material, and we've received a lot of amazing stuff, but like this one was especially moving to me, was a text message that I got from Alistair Erskine at Emory. It was a couple of weeks ago, and he wrote, we're at over 500 doctors now, and I'm getting love letters from clinicians telling me that this has saved their practice, their marriage, and their mental health. And I remember when I got that, I was just like, that's it, right? Like, and
Yep.
We've all read so much about concepts like moral injury, like where it feels like you're not allowed to do the thing that you want to do. And when you don't feel like you have agency to do the right thing, you start to develop this like 1,000-yard stare. And all of a sudden, when there's a tool that comes up, you can use it, you can use it, and you can all of a sudden sort of do the thing that you've always wanted to do, which was not take chicken scratch, not have your back turned toward your patient, typing the whole time, actually being present and in the moment and looking the person in the eye that you're caring for and actually building rapport. Like there's nothing like that, right? Like that's just, it's like everything that we went to med school for or nursing school for. And that technology can be a part of creating that experience now, obviously in conjunction with the medical record, and because this needs to be deeply integrated, but that's now possible. It's just incredibly exciting. Yeah.
Oh man, that quote you just said, I, for the record, had not heard that quote at all yet either. So that is, this is even in my health system, it is, the amount of emails that I get randomly from people asking like, when are we going to have something like this in our system? And it's interesting because it's coming from all angles. It's coming from the C-suite that's emailing me going, hey, what have you been working on? What are you talking about? What are some of the timelines for any of this? And then it's coming from, frankly, a clinician who's not super efficient, in the EMR, but like somehow already knows about this technology.
Because,
this tsunami, like start of this wave that hit us, November of last year, when I think just when GPT-3 got released from OpenAI, it was crazy. I know we've shared some stories about, making songs with our kids, or my daughter had to give a speech about some influential, historical women. And, she had some really good points. And we just started prompting GPT-3 back in the day with like some additional things, and then we made a song about it. And so she was able to share that. It's such inspiring technology, and the fact that pretty soon everyone is going to be so aware of it because it's going to be kind of pervasive around everything that we do in life.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think that we're just now, maybe, I think, sort of moving from these initial innings of understanding the role of generative AI in healthcare into maybe like a slightly more middle inning of recognizing what we actually want from it, like how we need to think about it, how we need to judge it, and that I think is also an exciting moment because we're past that initial stage of understanding that the value is there. Like there's a there. And it really took, like, use the term tsunami, and I always use this term like tornado. That's what it's felt like this last year, it's just been wild. So when we started this company in 2018, it was just like a few months after Google Research had published a paper called "Attention is All You Need" about transformers. And certainly for the machine learning researchers in our company, like that paper or transformers wasn't new news at the time, but certainly like that type of technology and that type of machine learning model was part of our why now. Like we talked about my personal why before, but why now is always an important, question to be able to answer for a founder or for an investor. And since then, like we've published more peer-reviewed computer science papers on transformers in healthcare than like basically anybody. And I think as we've tested all of these models, starting with BioBird or BERT or, Pegasus or Longform or like whatever, like as we've sort of evolved to this new world of also like leveraging LLMs in our stack, the way it's been received has evolved so quickly too, because I'd say like our tech really started to inflect maybe like this time, I would say like mid 2022. Right. And even then we do demos though. We do demos for CMIOs and C-suite executives, and they would just sort of look at us and sometimes they'd say like, put your hands up. I think you faked that. Or like, was someone writing that note the whole time? Or, and they'd seen some other company's technology that at the time involved humans in another country, like sort of like Wizard of Ozing it. And so they just were in disbelief, and they just figured like we couldn't possibly be real. And we just continued to evolve the technology, which with better and better AI primitives, but also starting to build our own, recognizing that I think what we're all recognizing right now too, which is open source, is absolutely like a real thing in the AI world. You can do wonders with like your own models if you've got proprietary data sets and world-class people. But something happened, like ChatGPT, right? That was the tailwind. Like that was one of the huge tailwinds that created that tornado. Because like at the health conference last year, we had a dinner about generative AI, and we invited a whole bunch of people to it. And we were teaching people what it meant. And this was like 3 months, I think, before ChatGPT came out. And then it came out and they all called us back and said, hey, like you were onto this. Like, let's take another look. And I think that in combination with this unfortunate tailwind around clinician burnout and shortages is what's created this tornado where everyone, like the leaders, like you, like the executives like you, that like the doctors like me on the ground, like, obviously the people seeing patients every day, like everybody is aligned right now that this is something that's mission critical to our organizations.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is such a fascinating conversation. And I have to keep us a bit on topic, or we're going to be talking here for 60 minutes and then nobody's going to want to listen to this whole podcast. But no, it's just like, it's crazy because, I just had lunch with a past colleague who left our organization and now works at Google. And, we were just talking about this general technology, not necessarily specific to healthcare, but she's like, oh yeah, she's like, I run everything like through some sort of AI. Like, it's kind of almost like the norm, for, I think the people that have just adopted this. I mean, I remember when Dale, my fellow Nerd MD host, who's not on this interview with us, but we'll have a kind of a post discussion about a lot of these that we'll publish as well. And I mean, he like adopted GPT faster than anybody I know. Like he was, I mean, I was calling him like a prompt engineer before, like that was like kind of a common term, because he was a prompt wizard. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And now he's probably listening to this and somewhat embarrassed, but he really was. I mean, he could prompt things out of that I didn't know existed. So yeah, it's crazy how, not only is this, I think, like you said, the true most current answer to the burnout issue facing healthcare, but it's a burnout answer for life. I mean, like for a lot of things that we do in life, I think it's going to really help.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
And it's such an incredible creative tool as well. And like you're struggling to write something, or we've talked about music before, and you can just sort of bounce an idea off of it. And I think like that's where so much of the utility is too, outside of like these very narrow specific verticals like healthcare, where you can go deep, is just sort of like bouncing an idea off so that you can get to somewhere better.
Yeah. Well, so to like kind of pivot back into Abridge, let's talk about a little bit about the differentiator, give you a chance to kind of share and shine where you think, listeners that are hearing this or maybe even hearing about Abridge for the first time, or hearing from you in this way. What do you kind of see that how your product differentiates itself, across the market kind of today? And if you can share anything about that vision of where you see it kind of continuing to maybe differentiate into the future.
Yeah, I think that the magic that we've been investing in inside this company, inside Abridge, since we started it, was this idea also that if healthcare is about people, our company is all about people. And what specific people? Well, we want healthcare native people, and we want to combine them with AI native people. And when you have both of them in the same room bouncing ideas off of each other, there's like magic. You get places faster and you go farther with concepts than I could ever imagine. And it's proved to be right. Like you just get a bunch of ingredients that don't normally get together, like a full professor out of Carnegie Mellon who's now working with us full time. And you combine that with our chief clinical officer, Tina Shah, who used to work at the White House and was in charge of like clinician burnout for the Surgeon General, and then did that for the VA hospital system, like a deep expert on this. You put them together, and then you bring this designer in, and then you bring this, like this marketer in. Like all of a sudden you're getting like to totally different places than you could have ever imagined. And so I think putting those interesting DNA sets together is a big part of what we believe is our unfair advantage. And I think for this space, my thesis, and obviously I'm extremely biased and this is self-serving, but I think that these types of technologies there should be an ethos of for clinicians by clinicians. Like I think that with that mantra in mind, like I'm the CEO, but we've hired doctors at every level of the stack of our company. Like we have someone who works on business development, who's an MD. We have someone who works on product, who's an MD. We have someone who works on sales, who's an MD. And we have someone who's actually training models, who's an MD. You'd never believe it. Like he's incredible. I'll bring him up. His name's Mike Meyerberg. And he's a pulmonologist, a professor, a pulmonologist. And while he's an expert in cystic fibrosis, you can look up all the research that he's published over a multi-decade long career. At the same time, he's been training models and doing machine learning in some way, shape, or form for over 20 years as well. Over 10 years and programming for over 20 years. And so he's on our machine learning team, and he's working alongside these deep learners, and he's doing incredible work with these models as well and contributing in such an important way. And so like when you find ways to sort of make sure that there is a clinician, and at every part of the stack, then I think you start to see things, people don't see necessarily, and you start to think bigger about this opportunity. And I hope, go faster. So it's an interesting space though. Like, and I think in all the great ways, like this is all upside, is like these AI primitives have been democratized, and it's awesome. Yeah. Like the floor is higher. Like my 13-year-old daughter just had her bat mitzvah, and like she she used GPT to get inspiration for like a speech she was writing, like the floor is like you said, everyone's using GPT in some way, shape, or form. And that's also the case in healthcare technology. Everybody should be using this type of technology because it probably has a place in their stack. So there's like this mantra that every company is an AI company in 2023. But I think that there are different types of AI companies. Because while the floor is higher for someone like my daughter to build a solution in this space, maybe like to figure out how to engineer this because she's smart, like maybe she could create a compelling demo pretty quickly. The ceiling for something she would build would be really low. Like she'd probably be kind of crouching, but like the floor is crazy high now. Like you can build something that looks like magic pretty quickly anymore because that's the nature of this technology. So wherein the floor is higher though, and we believe we've got access to this AI native talent. People like Zach Lipton, who's our CTO, CSO, was a professor at Carnegie Mellon and used to be at AWS AI and Microsoft Research. And he's a real expert in this space. And you've got people like Davis Liang, who we recruited out of Meta and was on the Llama 2 team there, and any number of other folks. Like we can't see the ceiling because we can leverage all of these primitives. But we can also build our own models that live underneath, beside, and on top of them to go farther, faster. And on that thesis that we have, that upstream of everything in healthcare is a conversation. So like, let's do all the things with this data to improve the care delivery experience for everyone who matters. And so we have an investor who wrote a piece recently who tried to break this down in their own way. And they sort of differentiated between AI-enabled companies and AI-first companies. And certainly everyone should be AI-enabled. Like there should be no exception anymore because we can all leverage it. But if you're going deeper a little bit, and if you're getting scientific, like we've got our own speech recognition model that we call EARS, which is multilingual, and we're continually improving it. Like every week it's better than it was before for medical conversations. That's a sort of skill set and a data set that's different. And that's where I think we're like going as deep as we possibly can to make sure that in my head, this is healthcare grade technology.
No, excellent. I mean, that you hit on so many things that I was like reflecting on while you were speaking. And, I think the number one thing you highlighted is that like secret sauce of the people that, set up an entity. Is like unmatched. I mean, I think it's interesting that you led with that, because I think people just think of most of these companies as a technology company, which obviously you're providing an amazing kind of technology for end users. But, you mentioned, having kind of those physicians at every level of the company. And it's, this is not the same, but it's interesting because when I reflect on my medical group that I'm a part of, we have that same ethos, we have a physician leader in every aspect of, the healthcare system. Obviously I'm the CMIO, we have a physician that's in charge of quality. We have a physician that's in charge of, the kind of our ancillary hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just the physician leader of, primary care or surgical care. There's people that are in these kind of side roles. And, they have obviously a whole host of people that are helping them meet their kind of objectives. But I always will say that's, I think that's always the secret sauce, of our medical group. And what maybe patients don't see that necessarily or understand that because it's not something that's public. You don't share that. I mean, This is probably the first time I've ever shared that in any type of public sphere. But I really do think it's incredibly valuable for the overall product that you're delivering. In my case, it's healthcare, but in your case, it's the product that, patients and the care teams are going to be using.
Yeah, 100%. And it's people. And I've been thinking a lot lately also about how you organize those people. And remember, I don't know if you remember, there was like this XKCD from years ago about Conway's Law, and what you look like is what you build, is the idea. And so there was these cartoon graphics of all the big tech companies and like graphics of kind of how they're organized, how hierarchical or like how single threaded or whatever. And in this joke XKCD, there's a cartoon from Microsoft, and this is pre-Nadella, and they have a bunch of silos pointing guns at each other. and clearly like telling the story, like like if you look like that, then your products are going to probably be pretty like siloed as well, and you're not going to necessarily deliver like the most integrated experience. But like, hey, like you organize that way, so what do you expect? Whereas like Apple had a very like concentric circle sort of like coherence about it, and Amazon had something interesting as well. So I feel like it's the same way, in healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about healthcare at the meta level, that's part of what I think we struggle with, because you got providers and payers, and like everybody's pointing guns at each other, and like who's unfortunately caught in the middle? It's the people who matter the most, patients, and then like the care teams around them. So this is an opportunity, though, I think, where we're finding a way to like align and actually push the same rock up the same hill. And I think also this technology flips the script. Like to your point, people you'd never expect to want this technology are hearing about it and seeking it out, which in and of itself feels historic for healthcare. So it just, absolutely. Like there's a really, really exciting moment right now.
Yeah, totally agree. Along the last kind of line around this topic that I'd love to hear your thoughts, where do you think like this technology is going in the future? So like, obviously there's this current state where we're just trying to frankly implement solutions, either in a health system or a smaller kind of practice group. But what, can you give us a glimpse that you think where this is going to kind of lead? And it can be specific to Abridge, where you actually do see it going, or just in general, utilizing this technology.
Yeah. And maybe it kind of gets to a question I didn't really answer before of like, how are we different? And at a high level, certainly those frameworks I chatted about maybe are relevant to the space that we're in right now. But even beyond that, I think that the way we define like healthcare enterprise grade technology in this space, really at the end of the day, like it amounts to trust. Like trust is the most important currency in healthcare, and it's the ultimate network effect. And when you think about what trust is, and the way we've parsed it inside the company, it's some combination of transparency, reliability, and credibility. And so the way we think about it across the company, we're like, hey, like what does that mean to marketing? Like what does that mean to engineering? What does that mean to machine learning? And so what it's meant so far is like we publish papers, peer reviewed. We work with academic labs. We fund R&D. We work with with our technology systems to sort of do interesting things that are outside the box. So like as an example of how trust manifests in our machine learning, we built this model that internally we call EELS, Evidence Extraction Linkage System. And basically what it does is it retro-engineers transparency into these large models that don't inherently have them. But the only way that we could train this model was with proprietary data sets that we'd been aggregating since we started the company in 2018. So we had this great head start. But it was with people. Like to your point, it's always about people. And so we had this incredible team of folks who could train that model. And just a couple months ago, the FDA, NIH, and ONC got asked to use it, asked to see it, and we got to demo it for them. And I think in terms of where this is all going, I think that's where this is going in healthcare. It's going to be front and center. Like how trustworthy is this technology? Like the White House just put out their statement on Monday. And I think it's going to come back again and again over these next few months. So for us, like going deep on the note and making sure that we can hit the highest mark, that we can be absolutely best in class and we can demonstrate quantitatively and qualitatively is really important. That this can work across specialties is something we take pride in. We're live across over 55 specialties right now. I mentioned Alistair before. We're live at over 22 at Emory. But also that this actually meets the needs of patients, because unlike dictation technology that I started my career with, I can't pick up a dictaphone and just start rattling things off in my chosen language. Like 22-year-old female with a past medical history of diabetes and hypertension, present with shortness of breath, next line, next heading, past medical history, colon, next. We're punctuating as we dictate. And this is not that. This is dialogue. This is conversation. You have to meet your patient where they are. And so if they're speaking Spanish, that's the language they need to be, communicated with. And then you need to find a way to meet them there, whether there's an interpreter or not. And so that's why our speech recognition model is multilingual. That's why it's being used on a daily basis in entirely Spanish conversations, but still within seconds, like there's a note in English that's right inside the medical record that demonstrates like that accounts for everything that was talked about. But I think beyond all that core work that just relates to the note itself and how we have data sets that give us the ability to have objective metrics that allow us to like measure our performance in a quantitative way. Like how complete are we? How good are we on what we call recall? Are we getting all the details? There's also workflow. And I think like that is the thing that is just, you can't underestimate. Because I think that once you get something, it's like really cool for a while, but then you want more from it, and then you want more from it, and you want more from it. That's just like the nature of how we are with anything that we use as humans. And when you want more, like, where does this go? You want this to feel like air conditioning. Like, I think that's the answer to your question. That's where a lot of generative AI technologies go in healthcare, is where you just like hit start and hit stop and you swivel your chair and things are there. Like whether it's the note, whether it's discrete data, whether it's orders or problem lists or diagnosis codes or whatever the case may be, but everything just flows in, and you don't need to be hyper cognizant of this stuff happening. Just like, when you're in a I should probably stop with this metaphor, but when you're in a air conditioned room or something, it's just there, right? You're comfortable.
Yeah. You're comfortable. The ambient temperature's right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the game. That's the ideal state that we're shooting for. And I think that's where we're going to get really, really quickly, because like the right people are playing, like whether it's, scientists like Zach on our team, whether it's large companies with incredible like engineering teams, like Epic kind of leaning into this, like everybody, health systems, like doctors, like we're all coming together to figure out how we do this. And so it seems like it's fascinating, right? Like in the past, you'd always say time horizon wise, you'd always want to be conservative in healthcare. Like, yeah, like 5 years, 10 years. But like for this feels like 2 years tops. Like everybody's using it.
Yeah. No, I actually do love that air conditioning model. And I just want to say healthcare does not feel like air conditioner right now.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with that.
At least not good air conditioning, right?
No.
Like it's like all wrong.
It's like the air conditioner that randomly goes up to like 75. Yeah. And maybe the heater flips on and then, exactly. That's awesome. Well, this last question, if you were, say, at a conference or maybe you're even on the street and say you bump shoulders with, and it happened to be the CEO or the CMO of like a major health system that you recognized, and you go, hey, you introduce yourself, and, the person goes, oh, I only have like 1 minute, to chat. I got to run real quick. What would you say to that person as that like 1 minute pitch for why they should consider Abridge?
Yeah. Generally, what I tell people is we're a healthcare grade generative AI company that reduces clerical work for clinicians and ultimately is aimed at improving the care delivery experience for the people who matter most, patients as well. And we're both healthcare native and we're AI native. We have some of the best world-class AI scientists, and they're working together with clinicians who really know their craft, know their fields as well. And what that's amounted to is a solution that's deeply integrated in the workflow. Something that, for example, you can open up Haiku and we're native there inside it, where things just flow into the medical record, into Epic or other medical records as well. But certainly with Epic, we go deeper as part of the Partners and Pals program. And what it amounts to is data. Like we've got the data, the proof's in the pudding. We're automating well over 91, 92% of the note. We're saving people 2 to 3 hours a day. And we're doing this across over 55 specialties. And on a weekly basis, our technology is improving. And that's thanks to the people who are using it, thanks to our partners like Epic, who are also like working with us to deliver the best possible and most cutting edge experiences as well. Mm-hmm. Like we're actually getting creative with them to test responsibly before we actually they deploy things, in a more broader fashion. But that's what's possible now. So work with us to be part of this new paradigm for care delivery experiences that's coming on really fast.
Very cool. That was literally, I think, right at 60 seconds. So excellent job. I'm sure you've refined that over the last several months.
I probably have a better one. Unfortunately, that was all new stuff. So,
well, awesome. Well, let's pivot this last few minutes. we have this thing called the Nerd Alert Lightning Round, and it's similar to some other podcast shows where we'll just ask some kind of questions. It's more to learn a little bit more about you, and also kind of fun. So first question, if you could vacation or live anywhere in the world, where would that be and why?
Yeah, Japan for sure. And like no specific city, but I'm definitely, and it's not just me, it's probably like my 13-year-old daughter is as well, but like there's just a lot of fascination and admiration for culture, that comes from Japan. So whether it's like wabi-sabi oriented architecture or craftsmanship where like the imperfections are the beauty, whether it's the music scene there. My roommate used to have a record label, and when I was programming virtual synthesizers and making music, we were selling records in Japan. He was with his record label, and like just like the subcultures that can like live and exist there are so fascinating. So
Very
that's
cool.
like a no-brainer for me.
No, that's definitely on our bucket list to travel there. Now pivoting to like, do you have like a dream car or past, present, future that you would hope to maybe have one day, or just that you think about?
I don't actually. Yeah, I'm curious. Do you?
I mean, so yes. So I have this like heart tug towards classic vehicles, like particularly kind of the late 60s. Like kind of the American muscle car era and trucks. But I think, what I guess my fascination is coupled with, I've been really into EVs for the last several years, and I really love the retro mods that they do of the classics, but like kind of update them to be much more modern. So they still look aesthetically like that old vehicle, but they put all the new parts in them. And even now, like full EV parts, to bring that car to the...
Yeah. Well, I got to learn more about that, because that sounds like that would be my flavor too. Because it's I think the aesthetic that I enjoy the most is like those 60s, 70s BMWs, like
cool.
Straight lines, relatively small, like not like relatively unassuming, but like very elegant. But I don't necessarily like covet a car per se, but I think being able to put that sort of those EV innards inside of one of those cars sounds like a pretty perfect match for me.
Yeah, there's a couple startups out in California that are doing this, and they looks like they're going to be coming out with some pretty slick products
Awesome.
soon. Maybe I'll have to have them on the podcast in the future. Now, if I think like if we take the concept of this podcast, which is efficiency unlocked, and obviously this first series is much more focused on these specific companies and products. But do you have like a kind of efficiency hack that you couldn't live without? Or if someone took it away from you, you feel like you couldn't go about your daily life or work?
Well, I guess there's a couple tools that I use on a daily basis for sure. Like one, super low fidelity, just making lists like at night so that I know what is ahead the next day and I can execute against it. And then on Sunday night, making a bigger list for the week. But the tech tool that I certainly use on a daily basis, and I met the CEO recently because we share an investor now, is Superhuman. I met Rahul Vora, and I use Superhuman for email, and like testament to him that I'm bringing Superhuman up. But like that's a tool that I don't really want to live without it, because I've just like hacked it, with all like the different kind of shortcuts and phrases that you can use to very quickly sort of reply to people and be efficient and organize. It's so important. I feel like I'm getting several hundreds of emails anymore every day sometimes. So it's so important to be organized there.
Oh, that's great. That's, I've been using an email product called Spark for quite a while. And they're actually out of the Ukraine. And it's just, it's an email client that you can kind of aggregate your different emails in. And they have just recently infused their paid product with a bunch of AI tools, which are frankly amazing. And it's already it's been a lifesaver. We get these emails from, my kids' schools, which frankly require like 30 minutes to read and digest. And I've just turned those on to automatically give me a bulleted summary of the action items that are in these emails. So when I open those emails now, I have the bulleted list right at the top. And I show my wife all the time, and she's like, okay, I think I got to start paying for that paid product because that alone is a lifesaver. So no, great example. Thanks for sharing those.
Have you seen Remarkable, like those notebooks? Yeah, I have one of those. And those are really cool as well. Like I get a lot of value out of it.
No, I agree. I've toyed with, there's a product that's kind of a competitor to them called Books, like Boox. And it offers kind of some of the similar things. It has one of more of the native like Android operating system. So you can put other, ebook readers and things like that on it too. But no, I think we're getting close with some of these cool tools to help. Do you have, I guess let's pivot to this question. Which technology are you most concerned about containing into the future?
I'm not concerned about AI. Like I'm definitely on the side of smelling something slightly strange in the voices out there that are looking to aggressively regulate it in a way that would potentially throw the baby out with the bathwater for any number of innovators out there. There's like a risk, I think, that value will sort of like accrue to a certain type of company out there that is already large, and obviously we could risk like competition and innovation and all those sorts of things. So I think we should be responsible in the way we approach things, and it seems like we are, which is great. And I was excited to see what the White House put out, and I'm excited for the next few months of discussions that'll come about. Technology that I'm afraid of, my reference point is usually like a Black Mirror episode in some way, shape, or form. And like all of the brain hacking stuff is very unsettling to me. It's interesting. So like I'm from, Pittsburgh, and University of Pittsburgh did a lot of incredible innovation around these neural technologies that could help paralyzed patients, move their limbs. And remember Obama visited, and there was like a lot of incredible innovation that was coming through this that he was definitely putting front and center as part of some of the science agenda that he was propelling at one point in time. And also I think where some of that research has sort of evolved into scares me a little bit. Like where it seems like it's less about maybe that use case, which feels like undeniably valuable, and more about something else that feels more Black Mirror to me. Like, is this something we really need, to do this sort of in a more like recreational way? And what are we about to unlock here? And, I didn't read the article, but I saw a headline the other day, like Meta published something about being able to construct images from signal around, like from your brain, from synapse signals or something like that. It's just like getting a little wild, right? So
yeah, it's one thing to prompt with like some words, like some creative, prose of a paragraph and have a cool picture. But it's another thing, to like think, oh, maybe you could just think of that, and like something would show up on your screen in front of you, or on. Oh yeah, that's super science fiction.
Exactly. And for like the modality, like that, it's invasive, that's also like weirds me out a little bit too. Yeah, no, good example. I'm equally, I think, scared of those types of things. Intrigued, but like it is, I think when you start getting into that, like biology, like interception of either DNA or like brain signals, like it has a lot of promise for some people, but it has also a lot of scariness. So good example. Last question I typically ask is, you asked me about that car question, but do you have any questions for me? Yeah. Like, what are 3 book recommendations? 3 book recommendations. Yeah. I think Adam Grant's new book, most recent one, I thought that was really profound. I recently read The Coming Wave,
And I just think that book was a really interesting historical kind of perspective of technology and some of the kind of historical technological waves that have hit us. And obviously was talking a lot about AI, so it was interesting and present. So I enjoyed that. And, the other book, I'm not completely done with it, but it's a fairly new book written by kind of like a CMIO. He's actually the CMO at Nordic, who I'm just friends with. And he wrote a book on kind of using human-centered design in healthcare. And it's just like, I think it's a really good kind of practical book. Obviously, totally different than those other books coming from, someone that's an organizational psychologist and, an AI scientist. But it's also been really helpful too. So
very cool.
It's been fun to read. Yeah. No, thanks for asking.
Yeah, awesome. I Googled them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. So before we cut, some people after hearing these like to reach out to the guests, and obviously they can reach out to either Dale or myself through our podcast. But what's your kind of preferred way for someone to reach out to you?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Superhuman, like they can just straight email me. And so an email address that would work well is shiv.rao@abridge.com. Okay. So, or shiv@abridge.com, either one.
Shiv, I really appreciate you joining me today. It's fairly late on a Friday evening for him. And he was up last night. I believe going to the Steelers game.
That's right.
Thursday night football. So I'm sure he's ready to go to bed, but I really do appreciate you taking time. I think I learned a lot, and I know that people listening to this learned a heck of a lot more about you and Abridge. And I definitely I wish you success. And thanks for being a part of this wave that we're on.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Adam. It's a privilege and always excited to chat with you. So anytime.
Awesome. Cool. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Efficiency Unlocked, Nerd Tested, MD Approved, a Nerd MD's podcast by Drs. Adam Carewe and Dale Gold.